two entrepreneurs who have built successful businesses, started in 2012 as a passion project between friends.
At the time, the Brooklyn food scene was really blowing up, and we started doing it, and it got a lot of traction.
Notoriously, the food and CPG industry can be particularly challenging.
At the Jam Stand, we worked really hard for a very long time. And I think at the end of the day, what we realized was the demand just wasn't there. It felt like we were constantly fighting to try to get it to be a thing.
We paid $10,000 to get into this store. And 6 months later, they just kicked us out.
I think there were definitely parts in the earlier days where we didn't have cash. We just did not have the cash flow to make it happen.
Dragging my feet to close those opportunities that really weren't paying us back to keep us in business.
I think without that, I don't know that we would have made it to where we are now. We reached a point in the business where we realized this is not sustainable for us. We need to pivot.
Now I think we've learned so much along the way that we have a very analytical approach to how we decide to say yes. It's okay to say no.
What we've realized now is there's real demand for what we're doing. And in that regard, it feels easy. So it's even though the scale of what we're doing is so much larger.
If you go back in time and give your beginning entrepreneur self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Slow down.
There was a very big movement of Brooklyn-based food products, and very few of them are still around, unfortunately. And I think it's because there was
Welcome to 5 to 50, Financial Strategies for Growing Companies, the podcast that gives business owners and entrepreneurs the tools to scale with confidence. I'm your host, Jeff Rudner. In every episode, we unpack proven strategies that optimize finances, improve cash flow, and leverage technology that all drive growth. So whether you're a founder, a CEO, or an advisor supporting businesses, you'll hear from proven experts and leaders sharing experiences and insights that you can use to help your company thrive. Let's build smarter, scale faster, and take our business to the next level.
Welcome to 5 to 50. I am super excited for this one. I've known our next guests for almost 20 years now. They're two entrepreneurs who have built successful businesses in the consumer packaged goods space. Joining us today are Sabrina Valle and Jessica Quon, co-founders of the Jam Stand, which they started in 2012 as a passion project between friends, and more recently, Mighty Picnic, which was launched in 2023 to help other CPG companies scale efficiently. They both bring over 15 years of experience in consumer packaged goods and specialty food. Together, they've navigated the journey from startup to scale, and I'm super excited to talk to them and dive in. Welcome to the show, Sabrina and Jessica.
Hi.
Thanks, Jeff.
Awesome. So
I know.
I got my math right. I got my math right there this time with my introduction. So famously an accountant that can't do math in my head. So Jessica, let's start with you. Let's start at the beginning of your most well-known entrepreneurial journey, the Jam Stand. So what inspired you to launch a Jam Stand back in 2012? And how did your partnership form with Sabrina?
Yeah, when the Jam Stand started originally, it was really, you said it was kind of just a passion project for us. At the time, Sabrina and I were both unemployed and looking for jobs. And we were always the type of friends that would kind of reach out to each other to say hey, I want to learn how to do this new thing. Are you interested? We had talked about starting businesses, but they were always kind of these ideas offhand of oh, maybe we'll do this or maybe we'll do that. And so one day Sabrina came to me and said, I really want to learn how to make jam. And so we just did it. And again, at the time, it wasn't we're going to make jam and we're starting a business and this is going to be the next 20 years of our life. It was just meant to be fun, but we started selling it at the local farmers markets in Brooklyn. And at the time, the Brooklyn food scene was really blowing up. And so there was also just kind of happened to be a bit of the right place, right time. And we started doing it and it got a lot of traction and people were interested in it. Started in markets and then grew into grocery and then kind of grew to national distribution. And then kind of slowly developed into what we're doing today.
Yeah,
wow.
A little bit of a pivot,
That's awesome. And, I guess one of the things that starting a business in quotation marks as a passion project, it allows you to do things with less rigidity and less formality than a the pressure of a normal business or what comes with people when they think about entrepreneurship. What are some fun things that you did that you might not have done if you know now, or if you knew then what you know now? And one comes to mind, naming products after your friends, and how did that come about?
Oh, God. I mean, we still to this day will talk about some of the weirdest stuff we have ever done. So we've done some weird things. The most interesting jam for the most interesting man.
Yeah, we did the partnership with Dos Equis very early on. It
was crowdsourced.
They wanted
cool.
edible crickets. And this was before the whole like bug movement came on, where it was like, oh, great source of protein. So I remember we were like calling like places in New York and trying to find crickets, and like we had driving around. We found it at like
a Mexican restaurant. It was like a delicacy on their menu. And I convinced them to just like not put it on the tacos that it was supposed to go on, but to give it like, I was like, I will pay you for these ingredients. Can you just put it in a thing for us?
Yeah. Still the most expensive jar we've ever sold. I think someone ended up buying it for like $1,300. Mm-hmm. It was just like weird things that you end up doing.
That's super fun.
Yeah. That was definitely one of the weirder ones. But yeah, I mean, we've done we needed to buy fruit in a pinch and would drive all the way to New Jersey and throw like 9,000 pounds of blueberries in our car. And
wow. I didn't have you pegged as fruit smugglers, but you're allowed to bring fruit across state lines.
We've done lots of fruit smuggling in our days.
That's awesome. Well, it's great that you can bring your personalities out through your products. So that's awesome. All right, Sabrina, the next question's for you. So notoriously, the food and CPG industry can be particularly challenging to break into. I know Jess said that you were at the right place at the right time, but what do you attribute your initial success to?
Well, I think with the Jam Stand, it was a lot of the right place and right time. I would also say persistence. I think we were very diligent about going to trade shows. We were very diligent about following up with people. Jess had created this whole system of like, I will follow up with you until you actually tell me no. And so we did that. And then, our brand, the Jam Stand brand, is very specialty. It's very niche. It's very expensive. And so it needs to be displayed in the right spot. And so over time, we kind of learned like, okay, well, when retailers are trying to put us on a jam shelf, it's not going to work because no one's looking for raspberry jalapeno in the aisle. They're looking for that with like a cheese plate. And like people who are going to buy cheese are more willing to spend that kind of money. And so I think, you sort of learn those lessons along the way.
I will also say, there was something about the Brooklyn food scene when we were coming up where everybody was making it themselves. And that's how we started. And we reached a point in the business where we realized like, this is not sustainable for us. We need to pivot. We need to find a co-manufacturer. And so we went that route. And it's been interesting to see. We started with a lot of other companies at the time that were Brooklyn based. And there was like a very big movement of like Brooklyn based food products. And very few of them are still around, unfortunately. And I think it's because there was like a moment where there was a bit of a pivot and a business decision to be made, which is like, are we standing strong to this Brooklyn made mantra, or are we making the business decision where we're saying like, we're never going to get the right prices. We're not going to be competitive in the space. We can't grow if we continue to do this in that way.
Yeah. And I mean, Brooklyn is just such an expensive place and it's not built for manufacturing anymore. Mm-hmm. And so, trying to cover that overhead is just sort of impossible.
And how did you identify that? And why do you think that something that you were able to identify that so many of your peers?
I think I don't think that we saw ourselves scaling it and producing a jam factory or a plant or like doing that. I think, we both went to business school and like got, our undergrads in marketing, and like, we weren't necessarily like looking to operate a food facility. And I don't think we knew what we were doing, and that was like not our domain, and it would have required a lot of learning. Mm-hmm. And so we quickly realized like that's expensive and it's going to be a big learning curve. Whereas like going to a co-packer is like less expensive and zero learning. Well, not zero. That's incorrect to say because that's
Different
how we
learning.
do business now. There is a learning curve with co-packing and co-manufacturing, but it was much simpler and it's easier to scale. They have the equipment. You don't have to invest in it. And so, yeah.
Wow.
We also had mentors along the way who were years ahead of us in the food space. And I think we saw how they were operating. And there were the ones who were working out of much larger facilities that had, were either co-manufacturing or were like, again, built out like these very large scale manufacturing plants, or there were kind of these smaller scale that were doing it out of, commercial kitchens and things of that sort. And I think we just said like, okay, which path makes the most sense for us?
Well, and it's like you spend all of that time actually making the product and going to a commissary kitchen or going to a place to produce it. And you don't have any other time to do all the other things that you need to do, whether it's sales or, finance or whatever it may be.
Right. Yeah. And so let's drill in there a little bit. You mentioned your formal business educations. How has that formal business education, Sabrina, you have an MBA, has that influenced the decisions you made in operations or vice versa? I mean, how have you utilized your formal education, or is it more just a foundation to make the decisions based on real world experience?
I mean, I think, undergraduate, didn't learn too much. And so having the opportunity to go back and get my MBA was like definitely super fun for me. I mean, it was a very challenging time in general to be able to like do that, work, have a child, all of those things. But I wouldn't say that there's like any aha moment. I think it just after 2 years of like quote unquote formal educational training, like I believe that like I'm more confident in most of the decisions that I'm making and like that there's a way to evaluate things in a specific way. And, every now and then I'll like reference old class slides or like look at something. But I wouldn't say there's like a direct correlation of it, but I do think that it has allowed me to think about everything in a much different way than I had previously.
Awesome. Now, Jess, how do you typically approach making decisions? Obviously, you have a foundation in formal education, but are you referencing colleagues, peers, real world experiences? Some of this, as an entrepreneurial journey is kind of, got to guess a little bit, right?
I am.
My gut is gut.
I'm a gut decision kind of gal.
Okay.
Is really where I'm at. And I think that there are lots of places where it's helpful because we move quickly. And I think part of being an entrepreneur is just making so many decisions constantly. Mm-hmm. And I think it keeps us lean and it keeps us fast, and we don't kind of spend a lot of time going over things. I mean, I think Sabby and I are both very data driven. So when I say that, I don't mean that we're not looking at the numbers and we're not looking at the facts and we're just making decisions with no background. But I think once we feel like we have the data and we've analyzed it, we're pretty quick to go with it and don't look back.
Yeah. And I think that's why our partnership has always worked, because we've relatively been on the same page about where we want to go, where we've been, what works, what doesn't, and, being clear communicators with each other about what we want. But yeah, I would say, we're very quick to making those decisions, but
with that being said, I also think that we go back and we do a lot of backward looking analysis as well. So it's again, it's not, when I say we don't look back, I don't want it to be like, oh, well, we're just moving forward. It's like, we do spend a lot of time looking back and double checking our work or double checking ourselves and saying like,
was that assumption correct?
And,
yeah.
How do we learn from it?
Yeah.
So what are those metrics that you're looking for, or what were you looking for at the Jam Stand to make decisions? What were some North Stars that you had that on a daily, weekly, monthly basis you were referencing to allow you to make?
I think with the Jam Stand, we never said no to opportunities. And when we got to a point to where we started to pivot our business, and then now to the new business that we created.
Yeah, I think a lot of the Jam Stand, because it was so small scale, I was more so focused on sales at that point when we were doing that. And Sabrina was more focused on the finances. And so I think from the sales front, it was a lot of just about lead conversion, what was our turn rate while we were in the stores? Were the customers worth it? How much were we putting into each account? And, I think Sabrina was looking a lot at our profitability and was the business making sense? We were working with distributors at the time. So a lot of it was once we pay for all of the bill backs and the promotions and all of these things and free fills, like I think we reached a point where the jam stand where we were like, this doesn't actually make sense. And we pulled out of most of the business that we were doing, which was a big decision to make. And so we still do the jam stand, but I would say it's 5%,
maybe even less. Yeah. I think that's what I was going with is like, we never said no to anything. And then we quickly realized over time that like, we can't do that. And now I think we've learned so much along the way that we have a very analytical approach to like how we decide to say yes. And we kind of make sure that the numbers make sense before we say yes to an opportunity. And so, yeah, I think it's definitely been a learning experience.
Take us down a little deeper, a little more details on your process to say yes. What does it take to convince Sabrina and Jessica to say yes to an opportunity? Now, what do you go through?
Well, our business has completely shifted. So what we're doing now is really mostly contract manufacturing for other customers. So the majority of what we're doing now is for meal kit companies. We work with HelloFresh, we work with Blue Apron, we work with Purple Carrot. And so most of it is they'll come to us with a new product, and then we will put it into the pipeline. We will create that product. We will put it into single serve packaging for their kits, and then we'll sell it back to them. So those are all pretty straightforward. They'll come to us with it. The first thing is, like, what is the value and what's the price that you're looking for this? And that's, right off the bat, we have to look at, okay, are we sourcing this already? Can we even get it to you at your target price? If not, let's just stop this conversation here, And so I think that there's like just checklists along the way of like, is this a viable project? What is the top line revenue that this project is going to bring in? How many hours of work do we think this is going to be in totality? Like, does that make sense for us? And then there are some times where there's a decision where it's like, this is actually a small project, but I think that the opportunity of this account in general is high. And so maybe we'll bring you on to get you as a customer, and then we'll continue to work with you to bring on additional projects. And that's how the value of your company comes in. So, yeah.
And how do you identify which of those opportunities are, utilizing your gut to make those calls on small opportunities that may not pencil right away? Do you have a process for that, or is it a conversation and you just trust each other? One of you feels passionate and you kind of roll with it.
I mean, maybe it's that, but I think a lot of it is like ease, like sometimes you could have a customer who like asks for a lot and the volume is not as high. And so it's like really analyzing that. And that kind of is the gut feeling where it's like, am I going to be putting in hours upon hours upon hours? And at the end of the day, the return is going to be a little bit too low for us at this point.
Yeah.
And we were a very small team. So it's like, whatever we take on has to, like, we need to have the capacity to take it on. And so
time is our most valuable resource. We have 4 people on our team. And so everybody is really managing a lot. And so if one of our employees is bogged down by this one customer that's like not bringing in really any revenue,
Yeah, it's risk reward at its most basic form. Risk can be dollars and cents. It can be time. So it sounds like you have that pretty tight. What's the process from a finance standpoint? Sabrina, it sounds like you're more the finance person on the team, and you're managing the books and making sure everything gets billed and collected on a monthly basis. Do you have a formal process there?
I mean, we work with a team that manages most of our bookkeeping. Who are great, by the way. Yeah. And we are also doing we built out a forecasting system for our monthly forecast, and it's based on current business and it's based on potential projects that are in the pipeline that we think are going to convert. And we update it every single month once actuals sort of come in, and then say like, okay, do we think this is going to land in May, June, or July? And like, do we really think we're going to get this? Or, or based on feedback we've gotten saying like, no, this project's dead. and sort of moving it off the forecast. And that has most recently like tied into like the cash flow projection for that month. And then then I also keep like a weekly cash flow system to just like sort of stay on top of like where we're at, because oftentimes, our customers have 30-day terms with us. We have 30-day terms with some people. And then so it's just like, always trying to float what needs to be floated.
I think that's the most difficult. That's where we're having growth pains, right? We just brought in a full truck of maple syrup from Canada, and we're dealing with the tariffs, and we're trying to sign contracts, and we're kind of doing all of these things right now. And so it's a matter of like, well, we're forecasting that we're going to need, 10 truckloads, like 300,000 pounds of maple syrup this year. But realistically, how quickly can we bring that in? What's the cash flow attached to that? And so I think that's where
it's like, yes, that price is great, but like if I can't use that for anything else for too long, it's going to create tension in the business. And so just kind of trying to make sure that we're on top of it from a monthly and weekly basis. I mean, forecasting is only as good as the information that you received. So it's not like it's our Bible or anything, but like, I think it definitely helps us make more decisions and, helps out. Like, we were able to sort of build the forecast, like say which projects we think we're going to bring on this year. And like, do we have enough in the bank and in the projection and with our line of credit that will float us for the entire year? Or do we need to look at getting additional capital? And like, based on our forecast, we're like, okay, we can operate with our line of credit and with, the profit that we're making. So, it's a lot of that.
That's a pretty robust system. Not many small teams can support that. So, just when you think about that from the size of your team and comparing to, other smallish businesses, how does that make you feel in terms of kind of the experience and the growth of the business, even at your stage? And how do you feel like you can compete?
Yeah. I think so. We've been able to grow as quickly as we can, and it's how we are as competitive as we can. I think that's the very interesting thing about our business model is that we're extremely lean. We're not like we hold very little inventory. We're producing everything to order. We have a very small team. So our overhead in general is really low. And so I think that goes back to us being able to be nimble and do these things. And so, yeah, I think the fact that we have all of these things built out is why our customers work with us. Like actually at the end of the day, we really are kind of a middleman. But the reason that everyone comes to us is because we have these systems in place, because we are simplifying the process for them, and because we are adding a value at a pretty low cost.
Yeah. So sticking with Jessica, what's one thing that you wish you'd known about scaling a business when you started that you know now?
But it's hard. I think it's just that it takes time, but that it's totally achievable.
Yeah. And I think where we are in relation to other businesses, and I think it has to do with Mighty Picnic versus a brand like the Jam Stand. With the Jam Stand, we took one investor. It was a small amount of money, and we didn't really like push, and it wasn't like we were going after private equity or anything like that. And so like in the CPG world for brands, that's like the ideal, right? They're like, okay, we're going to raise these millions of dollars. We're going to work with private equity. We're going to blow this thing out of the water. Then we're going to sell it. And so once we pivoted to Mighty Picnic, we're like, no, we found this niche within a market, and like we're providing a service, and no, we don't own a facility, but we have really good relationships with these facilities. We have really great pricing with them. And our customers can only have to work with one company as opposed to trying to source the materials, trying to do it this way. And so, we do take a margin on the product, but like it is competitive and it is tight. And because we are lean, we're able to use that in other ways and to drive the business forward and to start doing new projects. And so, last year we invested in a piece of equipment that now is at one of our main co-packers facility, and it's giving us the advantage for better pricing. We own the equipment, and we're able to increase our capabilities that we didn't have before. And so with that, now we're talking about buying a second one. And so like just those sort of things that like we never really thought we could do. And I think because CPG and co-packing and co-manufacturing is such it can be very hard to navigate, especially for new brands. Like, I think that we've done it for so long that now we kind of like know who you can go to, and we have these established relationships, and it takes a lot of, it gives brands time to focus on their brands. And it gives us, and like we deal with all of the headaches and the back and forths and the, you know, production aspects of it. And so we became operators essentially of saying like, you tell us what you're looking for and like, we will make it to spec and we will make it to order. And like, that's sort of how it goes.
Yeah. You know, with the jam stand, we worked really hard for a very long time. And I think at the end of the day, what we realized was the demand just wasn't there. You know, like the passion was there. We really loved what we were doing. It's why we still do it, even though it's such a small portion of what we do. It's because it's like, no, there's some love there.
Yeah.
But I think what we've realized now is like, oh, there's real demand for what we're doing. And in that regard, it feels easy. So it's like, even though the scale of what we're doing is so much larger, it's not a fight. Whereas like with the jam stand, it felt like we were constantly fighting to try to get it to be a thing.
Yeah.
Wow. So Jess, you were talking about how proudly lean you are. How do you scale, or how do you approach scaling a business being so lean? Every new customer that comes on requires some sort of fixed effort and energy and time to manage and to think about. Any secrets there?
We're efficient. We're extremely efficient. We have things very automated. You know, we have like our systems are tight. And also a lot of what we do is just replication, right? It's like, okay, great. We're making this product for this customer. Now we're going to go back to all of our other customers and let them know that we're making this product. So it's like, we're not reinventing the wheel. We spend a lot of time building the wheel in the first place and saying like, we're going to get this right. We're going to work out all of the kinks because we need to use this over and over and over again. And if there's a glitch in it, it's just going to slow us down every time. So we really focus on kind of getting the system right.
And I think from a financial perspective, it's like, we already know based on average what our monthly expenses are, like how much revenue we need to be bringing in based on our margin. And so, you know, we've been hitting those targets and above. And so we've been maintaining that sort of average expense. And I think as we grow and we start to feel those pains, it will be like, okay, now it's time to add someone else. Like we need the extra support to make the rest of the business flow with these new customers and these new products.
Yep. Makes sense. So you're seeing so many brands come through. What are the most common scaling mistakes you see businesses make in CPG?
I would imagine maybe putting a lot of eggs in a basket of a particular retailer.
Are we talking about actual eggs or?
No, it's expensive. Not
Nobody
actual
wants to be
eggs.
right now.
Yeah. But like, you know, saying, oh my gosh, Whole Foods is interested in me. Oh my God, Walmart's interested in me. And it's like, that is wonderful. And if you look at Walmart and Kroger, they make up a vast majority of retail. So like if they are interested in you, congratulations, it's awesome. However,
They put a lot of young brands out of business.
yes. And they also have a lot of turnover. Their buyers might be young. It could be very tumultuous of like what they choose and what they don't. And it's like they give you the opportunity, but if it doesn't prove successful to their standards, it's very easy for you to just lose that account and say like, that's, you know.
Yeah.
So what's the recommendation there?
I mean, I think if based on my experience, not everyone's the same, right? But I think what I would approach any sort of CPG as like, okay, I think you should start out regionally. You start where you are, you start where you're based, and you slowly grow the retailers from there. And you just keep growing regionally. And then once it's proven that, because then you can at least say, like, look at the data from this region, look at our sell-through, look at what we're doing. Now bring us into the next region or bring us into a national chain. And this way, it's also like doing it regionally. You can say, okay, well, these promotions worked, these promotions didn't work, this worked, but this didn't work. And, trying to apply that to other areas instead of just saying like, boom, we're going to go national and not totally understand why it's not working.
Right.
But I guess if you raise a ton of money, it might be easy to just like go national. But
Right.
we've also
The other thing, like, I think if you are doing a national launch, you need to make sure that you have the financial means for it to fail and that you have a plan. If it fails, what are you going to do next?
or that you have the money to back it. So if you're going into 1,000 stores, like, do you have the money to do demos? Do you have the
Right.
money to do free fills and placements and all these things that retailers require to make that product fly off the shelf?
Right. Yeah. And then to give you some actual cushion, things take longer than model to launch, right?
Well, everything takes longer. No matter what anyone says, it always takes longer. Like at this point, anytime we get new products or projects, we're like, okay, well, it's definitely at least 6 months out.
Mm-hmm. But entrepreneurs don't like to think like that, right? They think they're going to be one hit wonder or maybe successful overnight. So how do you convince your brands that you work with that what a realistic timeline might be?
I think that we're kind of in a sweet spot right now that a lot of the brands that we're working with have been in the space for a decent amount of time. So the expectations are not unrealistic. Not to say that that doesn't happen and that, we aren't setting people's expectations and also scrambling to try to meet them. But I would say that most of the people we're working with now understand.
And some of our customers are part of the reason it does take longer. Like we have some projects right now that like we would be ready to go. It's just their team has their system and we're waiting for them to come back to us.
Yep.
And I would say that some customers that come to us might be trying to push for something because they're in a situation where they're in dire need of product.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we try as hard as we can to like make that work for them and to figure it out.
Yeah.
But oftentimes it's just a little challenging because there's a lot of things going on at once.
It sounds like customer and client selection is such a huge part of brewing business as well. It sounds like you have some good customers. So let's talk about some lessons learned along the journey. Jessica, what's a financial challenge you faced together and how did you overcome it?
I mean, I think there were definitely parts in the earlier days where we didn't have cash.
Yeah. And we didn't have a cash flow model.
Yeah. And we've had really good partners. For example, these bookkeepers that Sabrina was talking about, there was a period early on where we had just been brought the HelloFresh business. We hadn't done the pivot yet. And they came and we could tell that it was a big opportunity, but we just did not have the cash flow to make it happen. And he fronted us a loan. And he was like, you know what? I see your books. I know how you guys operate. I see the value of this business. Here's the loan. And it really got us over that hump. And I think without that, I don't know that we would have made it to where we are now. Similar with the one investor that Sabrina had mentioned, there were times in the early days where he had kind of come back to us and we'd said like, we just need like $20K to get past this one hurdle. And he kind of was like, no problem, I got you. And so I think that was really helpful.
So you were ready. You had your financial house in order, even though you needed the cash. The financials were ready. They were in good shape, and they told a story that aligned with the actual business.
Yeah.
And I think it's also maintaining really good relationships with people who trust you.
Yep.
We're responsible.
Let's go to Sabrina on this one. What's one business decision you made that seemed right at the time but turned out to be a mistake? And what did you learn from it?
I think like launching our product in like the Pacific Northwest at one point, it was probably not the best decision. I think it was really hard to let go at one point of all we knew, and making that pivot. And so I think dragging maybe me more than Jess, like dragging my feet to like close close those opportunities, or as I say in quotes, opportunities that really weren't paying us back to keep us in business.
You're talking about the jam stand
Yeah.
opportunities there?
Yeah, exactly. Like we had some jam stand opportunities that were, not what, pay like, okay, one of them, we paid $10,000 to get into this store in New Jersey. The chain of stores, I don't know, it was probably like 10. It was like a very expensive buy-in. And 6 months later, they just kicked us out.
When they closed.
I think now they have, yeah. But it's just like, oh my gosh, things like that have just been like, I feel like I've been burned enough to know, like, okay, like probably wasn't the best decision. But again, it's the like constant saying yes and not wanting to disappoint. And now it's like, okay, it's okay to say no to customers if it doesn't fit your end goal or your model.
Right. Yeah, you have the experience to say no. All right. Now, how do you navigate disagreements between the two of you about the business direction or financial decisions?
Yeah, I don't think we have very many different disagreements. I mean, not to say that we agree on everything, but I don't feel like there's ever been like a sticking point where we've like had a real like headbutt moment of like a real difference of opinion.
Yeah, like I don't think there's ever been a disagreement about like the direction of which things should go. I mean, I think we've had like moments of saying like, oh, like I'm handling this, don't get involved, or like things like that. But I wouldn't say like we like have had active fights. And I think it's because we work literally side by side and talk about it enough that it's not. And I think it's kind of one of those things where maybe we weigh, like even if we disagree on something, we kind of weigh the financial aspect of it and just say like, I don't know if you really feel like there was a customer Jess felt very strongly about and I thought they were a big pain in the ass. And like she saw more value in it. And I was like, all right, like I don't think it's not gonna put us out of business. So like do it.
Right. Yeah. There's some sort of materiality threshold or some.
I think it's very similar to work. Like if I feel strongly enough about something, I'm not trying to say like, let's buy, $500,000 worth of equipment that we don't need. Then I think we probably get into a big disagreement. But I think the constant communication makes it much easier to have those difficult conversations if they need to happen.
Awesome. So Mighty Picnic is a proudly woman-owned business. You see it all over the website. So how important is it to you to be female-led entrepreneurs from the start? And what does it mean for you as you think back on your career and going forward? Jess, you're shaking your head. I'll let you go there first.
Yeah, I mean, I think women are great. But we have an all-women team. Our employees are women. And I think that it kind of goes back to there's really great open communication. I think we all work very well together. I think there's just something about our level of organization and understanding with each other. It's a very kind of soft environment. I feel really good about it. But no, I think it's empowering, and I think it's important to to be out here. And I think there is something about being a women-led business that is powerful and successful, but I don't think that we lead with force, and I think it's important to show that a women-led soft power business can do really well, especially in an industry that is, it's manufacturing, I think it has like a very masculine feel to it. And I feel really great about it.
Yeah.
Sabrina, you're WMBE certified. What does WMBE stand for, and how do you bring that approach to that?
Women, minority, business, enterprise, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. It's a state and local thing in New York, but I think we are very, it's not like we're trying to like stereotype men or say whatever that like women can do things better. We are more flexible or we can multitask better or whatever it may be. But
Maybe we are saying that.
maybe we are. But, I do agree with Jess. Like, we are in an industry where there is a lot of male presence and it's been done the same way for a very, very long time. And so we're kind of adding something new and something different. And like, maybe it is with that soft touch. It's the one-to-one relationships. Like, our customers aren't afraid to come to us with questions or come to us for more business. Like, we're providing them a service alongside a finished product. And I think that can often get lost in this industry because it's very black and white sometimes, where it's like, well, that doesn't fit with what we're doing, or, oh, that doesn't like meet our minimum orders. And so I think definitely the flexibility has allowed us, and maybe it's because we're women, maybe it's not, but
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's get into some rapid fire questions to take us out. Sabrina, what business metric do you check every day?
cash.
That works. The same business and personal, right?
Yeah.
Jessica, what's one tool or software you couldn't run your business without?
Oh, NetSuite and Notion.
Awesome. Sabrina, what's your best productivity hack as an entrepreneur?
I guess now Superhuman.
Oh, that's cool. So that's software for email. Is that what that is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Jessica, what's your favorite way to celebrate a business win?
Probably a cocktail.
That works. Sabrina, if you go back in time and give your beginning entrepreneur self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Slow down.
I like that. All right. And then either one of you, what is next for Mighty Picnic?
Well,
30% growth.
Sounds good to me.
Another machine.
Another machine. Awesome. Where can people find you if they're looking to learn more about you individually or the Mighty Picnic?
Mighty-picnic.com.
Cool. Are you active on social media anywhere where you want people to follow you?
No.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you both so much for the time. I learned a lot today, and we're looking forward to doing this again, hopefully in the future soon.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks for tuning in to 5 to 50. If you found today's episode helpful, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with other business owners looking to grow. Do you have a question or a topic you'd like us to cover? Connect with us on LinkedIn or reach out to us at ProSeer, where we're empowering entrepreneurs with real-time, actionable insights and financial infrastructure through smarter accounting, tax, and financial strategies. Let's keep this conversation going. Together, we'll help our businesses thrive. Talk to you soon.